The whole world knows that Samson Stabler married me to make Rita Minter jealous. They broke up before getting married, and Rita went abroad in anger. Samson didn't indulge her, and instead married me. I wore a wedding dress that didn't belong to me and married a man who didn't love me. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Everyone said that once Rita returned, Samson would abandon me. But in the 3rd year of our marriage, he seemed to start liking me. He would make me breakfast, coax me out of bed, and kiss my lips when I acted spoiled. During our sweetest moments, we were deeply in love. In the darkness of the night, he seduced me in a low voice. "Baby, have a child for me and be as obedient as you are." We were just an ordinary couple deeply in love. Until the day I actually became pregnant. Before I could tell Samson, Rita returned. That day, they reconciled. The day Rita returned to the country, there was a classmate gathering. I heard that her family went bankrupt and she was borrowing money from everyone. When Samson led me into the house, he saw a wealthy male classmate pouring drinks for Rita. He said that if she drank a glass, he would lend her 100,000. Rita choked and tears streamed down her face, but she still smiled and drank it all. When she saw Samson, she suddenly panicked and lowered her head, probably feeling embarrassed. Someone teased, "Rita, if you need money, just beg Samson for it. With your past relationship, if you sleep with him a few times, he won't mistreat you." Samson glanced coldly and slowly said, "Stop disgusting me." He had a cigarette in his mouth and leaned on my shoulder, then continued, "If anyone dares to make my wife unhappy, shut up and get lost." Everyone laughed and called me Mrs. Stabler, saying they truly envied how Samson treated me. No one knew that if it weren't for Rita's sudden appearance, Samson wouldn't have come today. Rita glared at me, biting her lip and holding back tears. The man who had just made her drink put his hand on her shoulder and rubbed it. He asked her, "What should we do? It seems like Samson doesn't want you anymore." "But it's okay, if he doesn't want you, I do. If you're willing to undress and serve me in bed, I'll give you some pocket money, how about that?" Samson crushed the cigarette in his hand, feeling unhappy. And his face turned icy. He still cared. Rita held back her tears and looked up at Samson. She softly said, "I don't want to. In this lifetime, I only love one person. Even if he doesn't want me, I won't let anyone touch me." Samson suddenly exerted force in his hand and pinched me painfully. The male classmate laughed, cursing Rita for being stupid. "Who do you think you are, a chaste and virtuous woman? Damn it, I'll sleep with you today." He pulled Rita up and started to leave. Rita had drunk too much and weakly struggled in his arms. Samson's eyes were fixed on Rita. I could tell that he had murderous intentions for her sake. Before Rita left, Samson finally couldn't pretend anymore. He took a few steps forward and kicked the man who was holding Rita to the ground. He pinned the man down and started beating him. With bloodshot eyes, he cursed fiercely. "If you dare to touch Rita again, I'll chop off your filthy hands." The scene instantly descended into chaos. Someone was recording, so I quickly grabbed his sleeve, trying to stop him. He turned his head, coldly asking me, "Who gave you the right to stop me?" I hesitated for a moment, then gently let go of his hand. Rita rushed over and hugged him. "Samson, don't fight for me. I'm so worried about you being hurt. I was just afraid that you might really not want me anymore." Samson didn't push her away. He held her tightly in his arms, protecting her. Everyone watched as he took Rita away, leaving me behind. That night, Samson didn't come home. In the early morning, Rita posted a Twitter saying, "You said you would never hold someone else's hand again." The picture attached was a photo of their hands intertwined. The man in the photo, with a cinnabar mole on the back of his hand, was Samson. And I am the person he will never hold hands with again. 10 minutes later, this Twitter post went viral. My haters left comments for Rita. "Keep going. You and Samson are a perfect match. You must get back together. I don't care about moral values anymore. I support Samson's affair. I just can't stand seeing Alicia Golden, that scheming bitch, happy." Many people were waiting to see me make a fool of myself. Some people left messages for Samson. Is that not you in the picture? I've been your fan for so many years, and I can tell how well your wife treats you. You must not let her down. Samson and I have many endorsements as a couple, and the breach of contract penalty is a huge amount. We are most afraid of scandals. The agent couldn't reach Samson, so he called me and asked me to think of a way to deceive the netizens, saying that Samson and I are together. I flipped through the photo album and realized that there were very few pictures of Samson and me together. In those few pictures, I was the only one smiling. In the end, I posted a very old photo of Samson sitting under a desk lamp reading a book. The dim light enveloped him, resembling the person who always appears in my dreams and makes me shed tears. As soon as the photo was posted, netizens started leaving comments. Look, Samson is at home with his wife. Whoever says that Samson is having an affair, I'll tear their mouth apart. Everyone was scolding Rita for being shameless and seeking attention. Until a few minutes later, Samson reposted Rita's Twitter. Under the picture of them holding hands, he said, "It's me." He openly admitted the fact that they were together, exposing my self-directed and self-acted clarification. Once again, he chose Rita over me. Rita's fans flooded into my Twitter, mocking me. Your pretentious act has been exposed. It feels so good. Alicia, you deceitful liar. Rita gave you 3 years, but you couldn't capture Samson's heart. You were useless. Who said I wanted Samson's heart? I deleted all the information about him from my phone. I want a divorce. Early the next morning, the company called me back to deal with the scandal crisis involving Samson. Unfortunately, as soon as I arrived, I ran into Rita. Perhaps Samson couldn't bear to see her alone, so he brought her along. As soon as she saw me, she apologized. Alicia, I'm sorry for last night. I drank too much and posted random Twitters. Samson also caused trouble by following me. I've already talked to him. He only cares about me and never thinks about you. Such a typical man, so clueless. People online say such nasty things, like you're just a substitute for me. It's really laughable. They don't know how much I want to thank you for taking care of Samson all these years. She smiled sweetly at me. I smiled back at her and said, I am his wife. It's the duty of a wife to take care of her husband. There's no need for outsiders to thank me. It's you I'm worried about. You were called a mistress last night, but please don't take it to heart. Her expression changed. She looked me up and down, and suddenly focused on the ring on my hand. With a smile, she said, Alicia, you're wearing my wedding ring. You should give it back to me. As she said that, she reached out to grab my hand. I was annoyed, so I swung my arm and accidentally hit her face. Rita suddenly swung her bag at me, and the metal on the bag scraped my forehead, drawing blood. She hit me with such force that I felt my ears ringing. I was about to hit her back when someone grabbed my wrist from behind. Samson suddenly appeared and coldly warned me. Alicia Golden, if you dare to touch her and see what will happen to you. When I turned around, he saw the blood on my face, hesitated for a moment, and looked at Rita. Did you hit her? With teary eyes, Rita shook her head. Samson, she called me a mistress and wanted to hit me. When I dodged her, my bag accidentally hit her. It wasn't intentional. I apologized to her. She cried, and Samson felt sorry for her. Hearing her words, Samson rubbed her head and praised her for doing well. Whoever hits you, you hit them back. With me here, you don't need to apologize to anyone. Suddenly, I felt envious of Rita. Actually, I also cry a lot, but the person who once cared about me is no longer here. The agent, Mrs. Bennett, couldn't bear to see it anymore and pointed at me, shouting at Samson. This is your wife. Samson, are you blind? Holding on to a mistress. What does Alicia lack compared to her? Have you forgotten that you said you wanted to have a child with Alicia? Have you forgotten that you said you only feel at home when you're with Alicia? Now that you're hurting her like this, are you sure you won't regret it later? I instinctively touched my belly. Inside my body, there is a newly sprouted child. He smiled, glanced at me lightly, without any emotion, and calmly said, Perhaps I did like Alicia before, but now Rita is back. No matter who it is, they all need to step aside for Rita. In the past, Samson probably only liked me briefly, superficially. Now, Rita is back and he wants to love her. I took off the ring on my ring finger, it doesn't belong to me, and handed it back to Samson. His smile slowly faded. After a moment of silence, he reached out to take it. Mrs. Bennet held on to me, looked at my belly, and gestured to me with her eyes. Alicia, don't be foolish. Yuri already. Rita interrupted her, snatched the ring away, and put it on her own hand. She found that the ring was a bit small. Her smile froze slightly, and she raised her hand to throw the ring into the trash can. She clung to Samson's arm and acted coquettishly. Forget it, don't be angry for my sake. I don't want a ring that other women have worn. It's dirty. He ignored her and just stared at me, asking in a low voice. You already what? I gave him a faint look and turned around to leave. Samson Stabler. I'm pregnant, and you don't need to know. Samson is an extremely perceptive person. Mrs. Bennet's hint was so obvious that I think he probably guessed about it. I have been taking medication for a long time due to poor health, which can affect the development of the fetus. This pregnancy was unexpected, and the doctor advised me to terminate the pregnancy. I don't want to continue entangling with Samson because of this child. Before the abortion surgery, I moved out of our house to avoid meeting him and to prevent him from causing trouble for me. Although, he probably doesn't care at all. He didn't look for me and continued to live his own life. Mrs. Bennet sent me a video. It was at an auction where Samson gave Rita a gorgeous diamond ring, and she happily threw herself into his arms. They are a perfect match. Yes, how could I forget? He mentioned that Rita had returned. Whether it's Alicia or Alicia's child, they both have to step aside for Rita. That's fine. The day before the surgery, I suddenly felt extremely anxious. I remembered that my mother had begged for a jade Buddha pendant for me before she passed away, and it was still in the safe at home. So I planned to go back and get it. When I got home, I found that the entrance code had been changed. I stood at my own doorstep and couldn't get in, suddenly feeling quite embarrassed. Suppressing my anger, I called Samson. But it was Rita who answered the call. She spoke with a triumphant smile. Alicia, today is my birthday. Samson insisted on taking me to watch the meteor shower. We won't be going back tonight. I told him before that lovers who make wishes on shooting stars will always be together. I didn't expect him to remember. I'm so happy. But I can't give you the code, after all, we're not at home, and it's not appropriate for you, an outsider, to enter. I hung up the phone directly, opened the password lock, and entered today's date. The door opened. The password was Rita's birthday date. In the house, all traces of my life had been erased. The wedding photo of Samson and me on the TV cabinet had been replaced with a photo of him and Rita. In that year, they looked so young, and Samson held Rita in his arms, smiling happily. The succulents I raised were thrown away along with the pots, and my study had become Rita's piano room. I was stunned and ran into the bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and found a whole row of sexy lace nightgowns that weren't mine. The safe was at the bottom. I trembled as I pressed my fingerprint and took out all the jewelry, cash, and documents inside. But no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't find the jade Buddha pendant that my mother had left for me. It was the only thing my mother had left for me. Rita knew it. So she threw it away. Rita has always disliked me and my mother. When I was in school, my mother worked as a nanny at Samson's house. When she came to Samson's house with her parents to play, it was the first time we met. Samson's parents introduced me to them. They said I was obedient, diligent in my studies, and very clever. Rita pretended to be friendly and said she wanted to be friends with me. But behind my back, she said about me, "What's the point of being good at studying? Working hard to get into a good university, only to end up working for us in the future." Her mother is also annoying, always smiling. What's a nanny happy about? A poor woman giving birth to a little poor child, so disgusting. My mother picked me up from school and ran into Rita. She would smile and call my mother a whore in English. And my mother, who didn't understand, would praise her for being pretty and cute and give her the roasted sweet potatoes she made. Rita turned around and threw them into the trash can, mocking my mother. "It smells bad, even dogs won't eat it." My mother was at a loss and couldn't lift her head, causing everyone around to burst into laughter. I dropped my school bag and pulled Rita's hair. My mother saw that I was being beaten, so she rushed over to protect me. She was kicked down by Rita's friend, and a lot of blood suddenly flowed from beneath her. That day, my mother was diagnosed with uterine cancer. It quietly took away my mother's life. That jade pendant was begged for by my mother before she died. She said that it is the most miraculous Buddha. I held back my tears and asked her why. She smiled and said it was a secret, she couldn't tell me. But I knew, when I was a child, I had a serious illness, and my mother went to pray for Buddha's blessings. She made a vow, saying that she was willing to exchange half of her lifespan for my health and safety. Later, my illness was cured. The miraculous Buddha took away my mother. After Rita found out, she mocked my mother. Poor people only believe in feudal superstitions. What's the use of keeping a piece of junk? It's better to sell a kidney or liver and get some money for her daughter. It was 2 o'clock in the morning when Samson returned with Rita. As they entered the house, Rita hugged his neck and pleaded, "Samson, can you sleep with me tonight? I want to give myself to you," she said, leaning in for a kiss, but Samson avoided it. I sat on the sofa, watching Rita acting foolishly. Samson's gaze fell on me. Rita hesitated for a moment, then turned to look at me and smiled provocatively. "If I had known you were home, I would have made Samson come back earlier," she said. "We didn't see any shooting stars tonight, so he took me to see fireworks to avoid disappointing me. Alicia, I'm sorry. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't be mad at Samson." I took a sip of wine, feeling dizzy, and stood up, walking towards her. I asked directly, "Where is my jade pendant?" Rita blinked guiltily and continued to smile. "Are you talking about the jade pendant in the safe? When I was packing things, I accidentally broke it. It didn't look valuable, so I threw it away." Tears streamed down my face, my hands and feet went cold in an instant, and my lips trembled uncontrollably. All I could think of was the afternoon my mother died, holding me tightly and wiping away my tears over and over again. She told me not to be afraid, that she wasn't leaving. She said she had made a deal with Buddha. As long as the jade pendant is here, Mom will be here. I threw the wineglass at Rita, the glass shattered on the marble floor, and the shards cut her leg. She was scared, took 2 steps back, and hid behind Samson. She cried pitifully, "It hurts." I grabbed her collar, hysterically asking, "Where did you throw it?" Samson approached to stop me, but I slapped him and shouted, "We're not divorced yet. Who gave you the right to bring her back? Who gave you the right to let her touch my things? Who gave you the right? You couldn't wait to sleep with her, could you? Samson, you're disgusting." He grabbed me a little roughly, stroking my hair and suppressing my voice. He said, "Alicia, calm down. I'll take you to find your jade pendant, okay? Don't cry, please don't cry. It hurts me to see you like this."